Hello everyone, we are going to talk about an interesting poem, Television by Roald Dahl. It's a poem prescribed in the ICSE Class 9 English Literature course for the academic session 2021. About the poet. Roald Dahl belongs to Welsh. Great Britain has 4 different countries in it. Number 1 is Welsh, number 2 is Ireland, number 3 is Scotland, and number 4 is England. And all 4 together makes Great Britain. Hence, we can say that the poet is a British novelist, a short story writer, and of course a poet himself, also a screenwriter. During the World War II, he served the Royal Air Force of Britain and got wounded in Syria. While recovering from his wounds, he started writing and became famous. Later on, in the year 1983, he was given 2 different awards. One is Whitebread Book Award and other one is World Fantasy Award for Life Achievement. Later on, he also got Children's Author of the Year Award from the British Book Awards in 1990. After his death, which is called posthumously, Roald Dahl is given 16th rank in the list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945 by the Times newspaper in 2008. He has written many books, out of which these are the famous books. The one published in the year 1964, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, seems to have some elements of the poem that we are going to read now. In this poem, we find that the poet appears to have visited some families, some households nearby in his locality before writing this poem. The poet feels that television is an idiot box. There is ongoing battle throughout the poem between television and books, the bad effects of television and the good aspects of reading books. The poet advocates that we must inculcate the habit of reading. Watching television kills our imagination, especially young children. It is a 93-line long poem, but because of its rhythm, style, and language, the linguistic approach that the poet has taken makes the poem interesting. So please bear with me. It is not going to be too long. But before we get into the poem, it's time to first identify what could be the possible themes. No piece of literature is written in isolation. There is always a theme behind that. So we have already seen in the previous slide that the poet considers television as an idiot box. The expression, the phrase idiot box is a transferred epithet. We understand that it is not the television which is an idiot box. It is not an idiotic invention. Rather, what it produces among viewers is ghastly junk, is not good at all, especially for the young children. Modern children should inculcate the habit of reading. So this reading is a concurrent theme of the poem. And it is due to television that we see imagination and creativity at its marred state, at its, foggy state, not growing appropriately. We have also noticed that the rhyme scheme of the poem is AABB, except in 3 different lines of the poem that we see in cheese, freeze, and seize. Everywhere we see a kind of pattern which the poet has thoroughly maintained. The rhyme scheme can be called AA and BB. Then we have the use of repetition. It is used actually to stress an idea. For example, the word never, never, never has been repeated thrice. Now, the next one is enjambment. We write B in it but we don't read the B inside. So it should be read as enjambment. It is a continuation of a sentence to the next sentence without any punctuation in between, especially at the end of the first line. Then we have an example of hyperbole, not an example, but many examples. And hyperbole is used to exaggerate something for a special effect. For example, rots, kills, dead, clutters, dull and blind, cheese, rust, freeze, a dozen eyeballs. These are the examples of hyperbole that we come across in the poem, throughout, right? In rhetoric, there is a use of rhetoric, use of rhetorical question. It means raising some questions and answering those questions in an obvious way. What shall we do to entertain our darling children? When the speaker asks this, when the narrator asks this, the narrator doesn't wait for an answer from us or from anyone. When the narrator asks this question, have you forgotten? Don't you know? These are some obvious questions in which the speaker does not wait for an answer from anyone. The speaker spontaneously gives the answer. Then we have the use of apostrophe. Apostrophe is about addressing a poem to physically absent audience. Audience which is not physically present. We have an example of alliteration also. Alliteration is the repetition of the consonant sounds in the beginning of some words in one line. For example, pirates, purple pants, cannibals crouching. What we find here is in the first segment, paw, paw, paw sound has been repeated thrice, and later on, cannibals crouching, caw, caw sound has been repeated twice. Then we might notice assonance. Assonance is same as repetition same as alliteration. In alliteration, we have the repetition of consonant sounds, and in assonance, we have the repetition of vowel sounds. Simile is a comparison with as or like, right? With animate, between animate and inanimate objects. Metaphor, a comparison without as or like. We don't actually say that he is like a lion. We simply say that he is the lion of his village. Personification, we attribute human qualities to a non-living thing, right? Is there an element of sarcasm in the poem? Certainly. While going through the poem, we will find that yes, the linguistic choice makes us feel so. There is an element of sarcasm. The use of the words like idiotic, drunk, junk, monster, ridiculous, nauseating, foul, unclean, repulsive. These are the examples of sarcasm. What is the tone of the poem? Certainly, you might call it, it's a funny tone. It's a very light tone, yet it is very serious. It has some serious concern. The poem written 100 years ago finds its words appropriate even today with the invention of smartphones, and the poem was with the invention of television. It is amusing, it makes us laugh at times. It is entertaining, it entertains us, but certainly it is relevant even now. Sometimes we find that the tone of the poem is very preaching or didactic in nature. So what are the take-home messages from the poem? What are we going to learn from the poem? Number one, parents are convinced to wean their children from watching television, to wean their children, to take them away. Number two, television shouldn't be installed in our homes, and if installed, it should be replaced by bookshelves. Watching television for hours puts a strain on the eyes of children, and at the same time, their minds become dull, which results in blocking of fresh thinking. They fail to understand a fantasy or a fairyland. Number four, Children's craze for television has trampled their progress in many ways. They are becoming lazy, they are becoming less productive, they don't understand many things, they only see. These are the three things indicated in the poem. We will try to find out more while reading the poem. And number 5, by birth, children are not unruly, children are not disobedient or ignorant of fantasies. They become what they see. They become what they learn. They become what they found or what they find around them. What are the concluding points in the poem? There are 2 main concluding points in the poem. Number 1, after the TV set is thrown, children would certainly protest and cry, but they would start reading books soon if they don't have any other option to do, or if they don't have any other option to entertain themselves. Later on, the same children would thank their parents for replacing television with a bookshelf. What is your opinion about the title of the poem? It is said that the title has been suitably chosen. Television is the pivotal around which every idea of the poem revolves. There is a juxtaposition of ill effects of watching television and countless benefits of reading books. Advocacy of reading books and keeping away from television screen is what the title suggests. Books are irreplaceable. We cannot replace the books. Though we have television, smartphones, tablets, phablets, Surface, desktop, laptop, iPod, and I don't know how many other gadgets do we have today. So now let's read the poem. The most important thing we have learned so far as children are concerned is never, never, never let them near your television set. Or better still, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. It says, just don't install the idiotic thing at all. We will discuss the poem in detail in a separate video. But what is the invocation here is that the most important thing that the poet has observed as far as children are concerned, as far as kids are concerned, is that they should not be allowed to watch television. Or rather, the television should not be installed at home since it is an idiot box. Thank you so much for watching, for your time and patience. We will continue with the poem in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Take care.